Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something I think we all recognize, that social ritual of the check-in call. After the holidays, after a vacation, or just that Friday afternoon catch-up, there's this huge societal expectation that we're just available, ready to summarize our lives on the spot. But we're diving into some source material that draws a very clear line in the sand. It argues that for some people, these casual little gestures, they're not light at all. They come with a really high psychological cost. The author actually calls it a loss of orientation and selfhood. So our mission today is to unpack that, to really explore this idea that sometimes silence isn't withdrawal. It isn't a struggle. It's actually a form of protection.
Exactly. And the source we're working with, it's an essay by Jaime Hoerricks, a PhD, and it's less of a complaint and more of a declaration, really.
A declaration, I like that.
Yeah, it's a deliberate offering. It's someone carefully explaining a boundary they have to hold to protect their inner life. And it really forces you to look at that tension,
What tension is that?
The tension between the social expectation, which is usually meant with goodwill, and the actual high personal cost for the person on the receiving end. And this isn't about, say, general social anxiety. It's about something deeper, a need for what the author calls internal coherence.
Okay, let's start with that cultural phenomenon itself. The author sets the scene so well, describing that time right after the new year. They talk about this expectation that rises like fog. It's this flood of messages, cards, calls, all of it meant to signal, care, continuity, goodwill.
We all know it. It's supposed to feel warm and friendly.
Right. But the author is so clear, they say they just don't live comfortably inside the form. The intention is good, but the act itself is, well, it's exhausting for them.
And that's what leads to the boundary, the very specific line, I don't do catch-up calls.
Yeah.
And what's so important here is that this isn't just a preference, like not liking a certain code. It's presented as a psychological necessity. It's tied to how they process their own inner world.
So when they say no to these calls, it's because it costs them something. That orientation and selfhood you mentioned.
Yes, and that leads directly to this powerful counter-idea. Silence is not absence. For the author, the place they meet people as their whole self is through writing.
Because it allows for time.
It allows for deliberation, exactly. They can meet others without performance or reduction.
That word reduction, that really hits home. Because a quick catch-up call, it forces you to reduce your entire life, right, all the complexities, into just a couple of sound bites. It really underlines their point that these gestures are not light and not casual, even if the person calling thinks it's just breezy small talk.
Precisely. We call it small talk almost to dismiss the weight of the transaction, but we need to look at the actual psychological work being done.
Which is a perfect transition to the mechanics of that cost.
Yeah.
The source uses a brilliant analogy. It's the feeling of being required to relocate yourself abruptly. So if you're deep in thought or just enjoying some quiet, the phone rings and you have to just abandon that whole internal landscape and show up ready to perform.
That abrupt mental relocation is the burden. The author says you have to leave the interior weather of my day, that private, focused state, and then what? You have to reassemble a version of myself that can be consumed in real time.
Wow. Consumed in real time.
It's an instantaneous restructuring of your inner self, and the source is clear that this process is profoundly disorientating and costly.
I can definitely relate to losing my train of thought. But the source says it's a loss of selfhood. That feels so much deeper than just being annoyed. What are the stakes? What does that loss feel like?
It's like a fragmentation. You're pulled out of this coherent state where you feel unified, and you're forced to perform a summary of yourself for someone else. You lose access to your authentic self in that moment.
You become a performance.
You become a curated performance. You sacrifice your internal your orientation just to meet an external social demand. And that's a really high price for 5 minutes of small talk.
And this is where the essay gets really provocative, right, about the motivations behind these calls. The author argues that intimacy, a lot of the time, isn't even the real goal.
Right. They argue that these check-ins are often more about the caller's need for efficiency or their own validation, not genuine connection.
There's a quote that's just brutal.
It is. Let me read it because it just cuts right to the bone. Being called so someone else can feel efficient, connected, or virtuous while stuck in traffic is not intimacy. It's demand dressed as friendliness.
Oof. Demand dressed as friendliness.
Think about that word, efficient. It frames the call as a task, a box to be checked on a social to-do list. The caller wants quick reassurance that their network is intact, and they want it while they're multitasking.
Okay, but let's push back for a second. Are we being unfair to the person who? Maybe that is their communication style. For them, that quick call is intimacy. It's the best they can do in a busy life.
And that's a really fair point. The author isn't saying it's malicious. They're just drawing a boundary based on what they need for self-care. They're
Okay.
saying when the person receiving the call has to sacrifice their entire coherent state just to provide that efficient validation for the caller, it's not a shared act of care anymore.
It becomes an imposition.
It becomes an imposition. The person on the receiving end is performing emotional labor so the caller can feel connected.
Which leads right into this idea of rejecting performance.
Mm.
The author just flat out refuses to perform, entertain, or reassure people.
Yes, and this is about the core tension of what the source calls legibility.
Legibility.
Yeah, this pressure to be easily readable. In our world, you have to be able to prove you're okay quickly. You have to summarize your life into a few audible gestures to show that you're legible, fine, progressing, still recognizable.
If you can't just say, I'm great, things are good, people get worried. Or they assume you're hiding something.
Exactly. They assume you're withdrawing. Your life has to be easily consumed by others.
So when the author resists being legible, they're pushing back against having to sanitize their own complexity.
Yeah.
They're saying that when they're pressed to speak on cue,
Hmm.
something essential just gets lost.
Right. They realize that the quick package summary is not where my life actually happens. Their real life needs time. It needs reflection. It cannot be delivered in a soundbite.
And the world already asks for that so much, right? Social media, work reviews.
All the time. So to add another layer of these casual check-ins, for this person, it's just an excessive burden.
So this brings us to this amazing contrast in the essay. The external view says silence means loneliness or withdrawal.
But the author's internal experience is completely different.
Totally. They describe spending an entire day without saying a single word and feeling content, regulated, alive.
Not lonely. Not depressed.
Complete. They use the word complete. And that just flies in the face of everything we're told about connection needing to be constant and immediate.
It challenges this massive cultural assumption we have that a rich inner life has to be constantly talked about to be real.
Right.
The author says it plainly, my interior life does not require narration to be real. It's real whether they've told anyone about it or not. And that's the fundamental disconnect.
So this is where we shift from just setting a boundary to actively protecting something.
Exactly. We move from refusal to protection. It's not just about hating phone calls. It's about the positive purpose of quiet. The essay defines it so beautifully. Silence is not absence for me. It is where coherence gathers.
Coherence gathers. Let's really drill down on that.
Yeah.
If being yanked out of your thoughts is disorientation, then coherence has to be the opposite.
It is. It's that unified internal state, that intellectual and emotional stability you get when your thoughts and feelings are all integrated.
And that takes time to build.
It takes time and stillness. So a casual, demanding call just shatters that carefully built structure. They're not just protecting quiet. They're protecting the very integrity of their mind.
And this need for coherence comes from their unique relationship with words themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They say words are foreign to me, tools I use carefully, deliberately, with time. Words are not my native atmosphere. I mean, we have to stop and think about that. If words are like complex tools, you don't just toss them around casually.
You deploy them with precision, only when you need to. It completely reframes small talk. If words aren't your native element, you can't waste them on performance.
They have to be whole.
They have to be whole, shaped, considered, which is the total opposite of what a catch-up call demands.
And the essay itself is one of those offerings.
It is. It's not a quick check-in. It's a proactive, deliberate statement. The author says it's just a line drawn clearly enough that I can stay where I am.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home, whether you're the quiet seeker or the friendly caller? I think the synthesis is we have to recognize that not everyone runs on real-time summaries.
Right.
That for some, deep communication needs space. It needs intention so that what's offered is true. We've talked about the difference between intended care and actual cost, and this idea of choosing coherence over legibility.
So I'll leave you with a final thought to carry forward. The source argues that our interior life does not require narration to be real. So if so many of these catch-ups are really about the caller's need for efficient reassurance, if it's a transaction, what new forms of connection could we build? What could replace them that actually honors the other person's need for coherence? What does meeting others whole really look like if it's not a demanding real-time check-in?
That is a profound question, something to really reflect on as you look at your own inbox and your own phone this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the real cost of small talk and the power of coherence. We'll catch you next time.